You okay?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another session of Focus on Liberia on the marketplace where we talk everything finance, business, and economics. I hope you are having a great Saturday wherever you are. Thank you for joining. I hope you can take a moment to share the show with your friends or your followings and join us for another maybe hour and a half tops to talk about the draft national budget. Um, I know you've probably heard it. You probably listened to other folks on other networks, and but on the marketplace, what we like to do, we like to look at things objectively, specifically from a numerical standpoint, and you know, not dive too much into the politics. So this is exactly what we want to do today. Uh, if you've been under the rock, the national draft budget was just released, I think probably a few weeks ago. And for us here, what we want to do today is just pick it apart, compare it to last year's budget to see if there are any trends in terms of revenue growth or expenses, growth in expenses, or even if there are any decline in the revenue or the budget as well. So that is exactly what we want to do today. That is exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to look at the national draft budget for 2023, compare it to uh, 2022. But specifically, we want to see where the government is spending its money and if those things, as the average citizen, whether those areas in which they're spending they're deploying capital, whether those are essential part of the government that need, where the capital need to be deployed. So that's what we want to talk about today. So wherever you are, again, as I said, I'm appealing to you, share it. Uh, glass of, grab a cup of coffee or tea or whatever you drink, sit down for an hour, and let's do this. Okay. So um, we have a slide here. We'll be going off a slide. And again, as we always say, we want your participation. Please do bring your questions, and please do bring your questions, your comments. We will take them as we go through a show, maybe halfway through. So thank you for joining us, guys. Thank you for joining. I was kind of rambling on and off here, but thank you for coming on. Yeah.
I know you are left in limbo for a
Yeah,
little bit.
no, that's what I was going to take this, do a solo pilot on this thing, but I'm glad you guys are joining. So perfect.
Yeah,
All right.
my wife just came from Ghana, and you see, as you can see, my wooden shack. You know what I'm saying, Larry? What's up, big bro?
Yeah, I may have some connectivity issues because of my location, but I will try to be on as long as I can.
The way
Perfect.
in the kind of
Perfect.
Neta said, you know, he said,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, nice.
you in necktie and coat suit.
Exactly. I'm not even going to court. Yeah, I'm not even running for Speaker of the House either.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? That's a funny one. Look at the house.
My cart is catching hell, man.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Yeah.
You might try to run. You might try to run. Maybe you'll throw a monkey wrench into that and help him out. Save him from his embarrassment that he's been going through. You know.
Save him from
But
himself.
you notice how the people who disagree with him being selected as Speaker, they started calling them rebels,
Oh yeah.
started
Yeah.
labeling them rebels.
That's
They're
smart.
all Republicans, but they're calling them rebels just to kind of give them a bad kind of connotation as if they're doing something so illegal. They start calling
Yeah.
them rebels.
But he got to call himself. I mean, must he be speaker?
Exactly. That's
Must
that's
he
the question.
be?
That's the question everybody keep asking.
I mean, they voted for you against you what, 8 different times or more,
Yeah.
and then you stay, giving all these concessions. Then what kind of leader will you be at the end of the day if you give all these different, you know,
Yeah. I
your
think
own
his
people?
pride, his pride is gone. His dignity is gone. Like, can you imagine being defeated 8 times and still trying to go for something? But anyways,
Yeah,
that's
and it's
He
coming from
made
your own Republican Party.
he made so many concessions that I think right now he's weak because the fact that you can have one person out of the caucus who can ask that he be removed. So I can see this going on where people will be constantly calling for his removal. Anytime he does something they don't agree with, he's going to call for
Yeah,
his removal. But that's
yeah.
democracy for you.
yeah. All
But
right.
they say he was this. Somebody Tukpa quote wrote that he was um, elected speaker this morning at 4 a.m. I don't know.
I think he was. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Finally, what?
Finally. All right. Right. All right.
Well,
So, guys, I don't know if you guys had the chance to review the budget. This is what we want to talk about. I'm glad we were able to open to that. That is politics on this side. But what I want us to do um, is to. I know this is a draft budget, so it's not final yet. But as you guys always know, the nobody ever pushes back on the budget, so it just gets presented and they just sign it without reviewing it. So I can pretty much uh, say that this is going to pass without any pushback because as I was going through it, I didn't see anything that stood out that will maybe warrant it being pushed back on. So I can s- probably say this is going to pass. So if you guys have reviewed it, I want us to maybe navigate through it. So what I did, I had some slides prepared here. If I may share it. Um, all right. So let me see here. Let me know if you guys can see my screen here. All right. So here I wanted to talk about the economic overview here. I don't know if you guys can see it. This is kind of blurry. I wish I had a better background.
No, I
Um,
can see it.
okay.
yes,
So
it's too wordy, so it's blurry.
y- yeah.
But
So
go ahead.
it's yeah. So what I wanted to look at here is some of the things we will talk about, right? So in their prognosis in the beginning, they talk about inflation. It said inflation is projected to fall slightly in 2022. Um, just that right there is, you can call, you know, you can scratch your head about that. And it said in 2022, but remain in single digit in 2022 as the Central Bank of Liberia maintains its tight monetary policy stance, right? The increased aggregate demand and high costs on food and oil and gas due to the geopolitical tension in Eastern Europe are expected to push. inflation upward to 8.7% in 2023. So they're projecting it to increase for 7%. So, um, and then further down here, it is said they talk about the debt, which is uh, not the debt, the GDP. We're at now at 3.9 billion, so technically 4 billion, right, for 2022, right? And they're projecting that to increase to $4.2 billion. So in all, in essence, this economy is growing from what we're seeing here. But as we go through the budget, I will let you guys to determine that to make your own analysis. So I just wanted to share that. Do you guys have any thoughts on that few those few sentences or this opening line?
So let me go in case I lose connectivity.
Right.
What the people need to understand, first of all, is why is this important? So there are three reasons, right?
Mhm.
Everything in a country pretty much runs off how the economy is doing. What that means is if the economy is growing,
Mhm.
there's a strong possibility where as the economy is growing, that means businesses now are making more money.
Right.
As those businesses make more money, they pay their employees. The
Mhm.
employees take that money, they go to the market, they shop, the people there in Water, or anywhere in Liberia who are selling the market, they can take that money now, go and buy more supplies, bring it
Mhm.
in, and then everything runs around in a cycle.
Right.
So when the economy is doing good, people are employed, to spend the money, and that's why the economy is so important. When
Right.
the economy is not doing so good, just the opposite, right? Nobody's making money, nobody can go and buy anything.
Mhm.
So two things you just mentioned with this whole central bank thing,
Monetary policy
the
stance.
monetary policy stance.
Right.
I don't believe the central bank in Liberia has a strong mechanism. Well, first of all, what does that mean? That whole monetary policy. Central banks use the monetary policy as a way to control the flow of money in an economy.
Yep.
If the central bank increases the rates, the monetary policy rate, and here's the thing: the central bank is only making a recommendation on what banks should charge. The central bank itself does not set a rate for banks to charge each other. That's a
Yep.
clear distinction. When people hear, oh, the Federal Reserve Bank raised rates, that is only in the what they call the federal funds market.
Funds
It's a
market.
suggestion by the Federal
Yep.
Reserve Bank, but people tend to follow it because the Federal Reserve Bank uses that to control the flow of money.
Mhm.
The other tools the central bank or Federal Reserve Bank will use is how much money banks will keep in their vault in case a bank is going to collapse or something.
Mhm.
So the amount of money they keep in the vault is also influenced by the bank. When the bank wants to take money out of the economy, meaning less money to
Mhm.
reduce inflation, they would say, oh, listen, everybody, all the banks, the 7 or so banks in Liberia, we want you to increase your reserve, like
Mhm.
increase the reserve requirement. That means they're taking money out of the economy.
Yep.
The central bank in Liberia doesn't have the kind of
The tools. Right.
influence on the
Right.
economy with its monetary policy. If the central bank maintains its policy stance, that is, for me, I think it is meaningless because it's not really tied into anything anybody else is doing in the country, the other banks. I don't think the other banks pay close attention to what the central bank is doing. Because if
Absolutely.
the central bank reduce rates, you don't see
Right.
people going out there and saying, oh, I'm going to go buy a house now because central bank of Liberia reduce rates. That has no influence on the economy. So that whole first few lines by the central bank, somebody can come and argue with me and we can have a very decent, fair argument. But I don't think it's effective. Here, the Open Market Committee
Right.
here in the US, the Open Market Committee is the one who crunch the numbers and they tell the Federal Reserve Bank either to issue what we call treasury securities.
Mhm.
When the Federal Reserve Bank sell securities in Liberia, it will be the CBL bills and bonds.
Mhm.
They use that to pull money out of the economy.
Right.
You have inflation when too much money is the economy chasing too fewer goods.
Right.
Here's the other problem. It's kind of crazy in Liberia when they say, oh, inflation is falling, but yet all the prices on the market is increasing. So
Right.
I don't even understand how is that possible, you know? Rice price just went up.
All right.
Gasoline prices went up. When everything else is going up, they say, "Oh, inflation is going down." It's kind of silly, you know. I sometimes wonder, you know, who's actually making some of these suggestions. The third thing is, how can you say the Liberian currency is stable when the U.S. currency that so we're comparing the Liberian currency to the U.S. currency. The U.S. currency is at its strongest level ever. It's very strong. That's why places like Ghana, the CD, the Naira, the Central African franc, all these
It's
other
struggling. All right.
currencies in Africa are struggling because the U.S. currency, it is traded here in the U.S. as something called the DXY. When you take a look at it, it is very strong against the British pound sterling,
Even the
against the
British pound
other,
sterling.
the Japanese yen, against the Deutsche Mark, against the Chinese yuan renminbi, all these other currencies, the Austrian dollars, the Swedish krona, all these other currencies are kind of weakening against the U.S. dollar, except the Liberian dollars.
Yeah.
What the hell they're doing in Liberia that is so great that the Liberian dollar does not fall when the U.S. currency gets stronger? So for me, I think somebody's cooking the books
Yeah.
in terms of the number. And it's not unusual. It is not unusual for government officials in countries to kind of play with
You
the
to do
numbers,
that.
to
Right.
kind of make
Right.
them look good. But that's just me. I can
Okay.
have a fair, decent argument with anybody who thinks they have the data to support what it is that the CBL is doing in Liberia. So
All right.
economy, folks, important for every aspect and every part of everybody's life in Liberia.
Alex,
Yeah,
what do
that's
you? What do you?
that's uh, that's Larry. That's the question I was going to ask. By the way, I just opened the budget and I was looking at that paragraph, the third paragraph
Right.
on the projected the inflation is projected to fall, and all that stuff. So you just capture all that, and I was also going to talk about the exchange rate, comparing the U.S. dollars and stuff like that. So it's like somebody I overheard somebody saying that, in fact, you're talking about cooking the books. In fact, they cook the books to pass the MCC scorecard. So
Hmm.
if you in football, in American football, let me make that distinction from real football to American football.
Hmm.
In American football, they have something they call false start, right?
Hmm.
If you have a false start, if I'm quoting it correctly, if you have a false start and even score a touchdown, you gotta start all over, right?
Yep.
So false start means false start. So if people are lying and being deceptive and cooking the books as you describe it, then it's just a false start. So
Yeah.
you know,
Okay. So I agree with you guys too.
but
I
it,
think.
but Gabriel, it's good that you did the expense and comparison or whatever. So
Yeah.
maybe
That's
when
that
we go
was the
to that,
next part.
that's something. Yeah,
That's
but
the next part I want us to jump into. I just wanted us to
again,
look at.
again, when you have a country that for the past 2 years now, if, exchange rate has been level, when
Mhm.
even the almighty British pound sterling is now even running behind or struggling, with the U.S. dollars, and U.S. dollars getting stronger and stronger, and
Mhm.
all the countries around you, their currency is having problem because of worldwide phenomenon. I mean, nobody holds anybody responsible for that. There's
Mhm.
COVID that happened. It created a problem. It created a supply chain. There was more money in the system, so
Mhm.
more money was chasing less goods. Of automatically, economics would tell you that inflation will go up because of that. Prices of goods will go up, and as prices of goods going up, inflation is also going up.
Mhm.
In Liberia, prices of goods are going up, but inflation is coming down. It's the complete reverse of the opposite. So it's not parallel. So again, as Larry said, maybe the Liberian people were doing something different from the world phenomenon. What is
Let
the
me.
real world phenomenon? I don't know.
It is. I'm not trying to play devil's advocate here, but I don't know if you guys. I would say this, and then we can jump into the other slide, right? So you guys know Australia, right?
Mhm.
Australia is maybe Liberia is becoming. That's the only excuse I can make. Maybe we're becoming the new Australia. And why do I say that? Australia was the only country that went. 30 years, 30 years straight with all these market, even the financial crash, those 92 bomb, I mean, dot com, they never had any economic um, challenges for 30 years straight. Like no economy downturn for 30 years straight, right? So in a way, maybe somebody in Liberia is becoming a rising star to be able to point these numbers out. That's the only excuse I can I can make for them. But contrary to that, I think you guys have said it, have said it all. So I that's the only excuse
So,
I can make for them,
Yeah,
right?
but Gabriel, there gotta be something that Australia situation is different because
Right.
all those things that for the past 30 years have been supported by
Mhm.
their own situation in Australia. So I don't know what kind of devil advocacy you want to play, but it's
I just wanted to throw that out there. Maybe we're onto
well,
something we don't know that, you
look,
know.
Gabriel, the only thing Liberia, I would say Liberia have similarly in terms of history with Australia is
Mhm.
the fact that just how the U.S. took free slaves and sent it to Liberia, and then they decided to just kind of run over the people who were already there, is the
The
same way the
indigenous.
British took all of their prisoners and sent them to Australia, and then and then turned that place into what it is today. That's the
Yeah.
only thing in terms of having people come in who are I would say some of quasi colonialist because that's
Yeah.
what happened. But other than that, Australia similar to Singapore because Singapore they didn't lose when we had a financial crisis. They were one of those few countries that didn't invest heavily in mortgages, right? So
Yeah.
in kind of a sense, Australia is similar in that respect. But yeah, Australia have a far better economy. They use actual data
Mhm.
the people who should be collecting the data in Liberia, which is ListGIS. We've seen a fiasco as ListGIS, right? The Liberia
Yeah.
Institute for Statistical Geo.
Right.
Thank those
Right.
guys. We've seen a fiasco over there. At
Mhm.
one time, ListGIS didn't have enough funding to collect the data, the financial data they needed. So what did they do? They turned the work over to the Ministry of Finance. So you had a situation where the Ministry of Finance was actually providing the economic data on themselves to the central bank,
Yeah.
which is in essence having somebody be a player and referee in the same game. They're not going to cheat themselves, right? So,
Yeah.
but I see you have your slide up there. So let me just swing it back over to you. We can talk about the slides.
Yeah. So I'm now I want you guys to maybe put your hat on. So this is what I want us to look at, and I think this is important. So what we're here. Um. So as I said earlier, we just had the budget pass. I mean, not the, it hasn't. It's a draft budget. So we wanted what I wanted us to do is just compare it to last year's, right? But comparing it to last year, not so much to focus on last year, but to say to help us identify trend, right? In this sense, meaning that wherever there's been increases or decreases in revenue or expenses, at least looking at last year will help us identify those trends. So this is exactly what we did out here, right? So this chart that you're seeing on here is specifically just from the revenue standpoint. So if you look at the bottom of the chart, which is the total revenue in 2022, uh, the budget, total budget was 800, and these numbers are in millions, by the way. Um, so in 2022, the budget was 800, 786 million, and this year draft budget is 778 million. So technically, in overall, we're 1%. There's been a 1% decrease in the budget, or $8 million, right? So starting from the top, um, as I said, these are just revenue part, wherever the monies are coming from. So from the tax on income, uh, there's been a growth of 38 million, or 19%. From taxes on property, there's been a decrease by a million, which by all 17%. And you same thing, you look at goods and services tax, it went up by 7 million, or 13%, right? uh International trade taxes, we did very good there. We went up, we increased it by $34 million. Dollars. Um, and then there's other taxes. So also below that we have the property income. So I think that's property taxes, right? That has significantly declined by 34 million or 26%. What else has declined? Uh, we have royalties. So royalties and rents. So that is pretty much your concessions, right? Revenues from your concessions. We are 37 million short. So it decreased by 39% or 37 million, right? And in overall, the budget decreased by 1% or 8 million, right? If you add everything up. So the reason why I initially put up the economic projection or the prognosis on the economy for 2023 this year is pretty much to hone in this point that I wanted to make here. So if you look at the revenue growth for last year, right? I mean the economy, not revenue, right? We grew by 3.7%. However, we were not able to capitalize on that growth, right? Because here we are with a budget decrease. So, with that being said, what is your thought on this slide specifically from a revenue standpoint?
The first thing I wanted to ask was that, so you remember last year, 2022 budget,
Right.
we discussed that, and the budget had was,
Recast.
I think our budget, we were all celebrating the fact that our budget is now going, it's
Almost a
getting
billion.
closer to 700,
Right.
1 billion and all that stuff.
Hmm.
So it looks like it's dipped down a little bit. So, I don't know what's going on. Was there a downward recast to avoid a budget shortfall?
So, yeah, if you remember, last year there was a recast,
Hmm.
and that recast they end up borrowing some money. I think it was 15 million or so, or even more, right? To
Hmm.
so technically the technical budget for last year, the actual budget for last year should have been $812 million. So you can do the math and tell you how much increase it was, right? When they did the recast, they borrowed some money, I think from the IMF and the World Bank to to meet the shortfall, right? So it came out to $812 million, right? So technically, if I had to revise that, that percentage decrease will be significantly high. Now, for this budget, I think if you look at it, the biggest, the reason why I think there was a decline or decrease in the budget. If you look all the way at the bottom, right, on the external sources, right.
Hmm.
So we collected, we had $145 million
Hmm.
from external sources last year. This year, we're only getting 110 million.
110
So,
million.
right. So that in essence is telling us that if we don't have the adequate external reach or budgetary support, whatever sources we get that from, we cannot technically meet our budget every year. And I can guarantee you that there's going to be a recast of this budget some point, maybe by March or mid-year as well, just like we did last year. But for me, overall, that is the biggest thing that I can see on here that resulted in the decline, the 1% decline overall. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you look at it, taxes on income and profit seem to have increased
Hmm.
by 18 million. There's taxes on property decreased a little bit, just by 1 million,
Hmm.
and the rest, property income has decreased as well by 30, I think 14 million.
Hmm.
Um,
Right.
and then royalty, those are smaller numbers, but it's also decreased significantly compared.
Yeah.
Um, so, and then of course the decrease in the external revenue.
Hmm.
So, um, what is happening? Even though the economic outlook look good, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But then why is it not showing in the budget from year to year?
Yeah.
right? And these are the same parallel thing we're talking about. Here you have, as compared to last year economic outlook, this year economic outlook on paper is better.
It's better, right?
But then the budget itself, it doesn't translate to the budget itself.
Hmm.
So if your budget is decreasing by 1%, which is 800 million, I
Hmm.
thought it should be going up by 1% or more, then decreasing. So that you may be right that there could be, it, but you say there's budget shortfall, but there's a way the government always try to skip the budget shortfall situation by doing the budget recast, going running back to the legislature and doing a recast,
Hmm.
right? So that they downgrade the numbers or something like that, so that we don't have the situation in the past government where there was budget shortfall and somebody was being referred to as budget shortfall. So nobody wants to nobody wants to adopt the name budget shortfall.
Right, right,
You know,
right. So do you think that's the reason why they usually do a full recast of the budget?
I mean, recast of budget is done two ways. If there's additional money,
Hmm.
or if economic situation as such that, or revenue generations as the situation as such that you can't make up your revenue, it's a downgrade. You go back, you do a recast.
Hmm.
You would do a recast. You go back to the but apparently the previous government was, did it realistically. But I mean, the budget situation is a budget situation. They wait for the end of the year to collect the numbers and do it, and then they find out that they get, you know, a shortfall.
Hmm.
But in this government, they sort of, for lack of a better word, they sort of quote unquote arrest that situation even before it happened,
Hmm.
or why it's happening. They run to the legislature and correct that and do a recast. You will note that over the past few years there have been recast and recast.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. Here's the point that I want to make. I don't mind the recast if because this is all projections, right? Let's say you give a projection, and then let's say first quarter or second quarter in, you realize that we are collecting so much revenue from, let's say, the taxes on income and profits. Let's say a lot of businesses you're launching, a lot of businesses are starting and they're paying taxes. There are people paying income taxes, and you say we're making a lot of money. So let's recast this budget in order to project that actual that um, you know extra tax revenue that is coming in to say we're going to allocate it to certain places, right? Which
Mhm,
in this case will be increase in the budget. But
mhm,
the problem that I have with always the government recasting the budget is that every time they recast it, it's never in that case. What they do, they go borrow money to make up for the shortfall. So it's never in the form where you're doing a recast because you have extra revenues coming from different sources and you want to incorporate those that into the economy. I mean into the budget. But it's always last year when the recast was done, we went to
mhm.
borrow money. So that will get us to another point later, which is the level of debt that we're currently in. So that is besides that, that is the only um, qualm that I have about this. And in addition to that, the there's been a significant drop in the external sources, and just because of that, coincidentally, we have a decline in our budget. So I think those are the only 2 points that I wanted to make on that. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So let's get on to the the expenditure, right? So yeah. So now that we have the money, we made the money, which was 778 million,
Hmm.
right? Where are we spending it? This is a kind of a bigger overview of where the money is being spent. As you always know, the compensation on employees, right? That is about uh, 200, and this year was they're projecting it to go up by 296 million, right? What it went up by 3 million or 1%. Goods and services declined significantly to 106 million or $33 million less or 24% percentage
Yeah,
change.
but Gabriel, how your total 202 is 806 as compared to 786.
So what I did, I
Are
took that number.
did you have the same problem I have last year doing the numbers because I just couldn't get it straight?
No, I took that number from the recast. So technically, yes. So I took that number from the recast.
So the budget was recasted upwards.
Yes, when it recast it, yeah, I think it was actually that should have been up. It was recast to 812 million. So I'm short 6 million on that somewhere, right? So that's what that number
Yeah,
is.
sometimes when you're doing a summary in the budget, it's when you're doing the Excel spreadsheet or the summary of budget, it's kind of like dicey. You gotta, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
So
Anyway,
the let me see where else. So from non-financial assets, I think those are the fixed assets, as you guys call it in accounting term, like the government properties, like the vehicles, the equipment, the buildings, all of those, right? They spend 150, they're spending 163 million on it, right?
mhm.
Where else? Uh, Subsidies went up significantly. We're spending 16 million on subsidy this year. Um, and our debt payment at the bottom, both domestic and foreign, that has seen a lot of changes, right? So we have a good significant decline in domestic debt payment, which is good, from 70 million to 35 million. However, the foreign debt,
Ex-
which is our external debt, right? It
mhm.
is it went up by $20 million more, and that is a 56% increase from previous year.
Yeah,
So
it could be. It
overall,
could. Uh-huh.
yeah, go ahead.
It could be that some of the debts. I mean, there's two things that could happen. The one will say from the local aid, oh, our debt is going up.
Hmm.
Yes, our debt is going up. It's true, but it could be also that some of those debts are now coming due,
Yeah.
right? Because sometimes you have a concessionary period where you don't pay for some time, and then so more of those interest payment. Sometimes you just pay the interest, but now
Hmm.
some of the principal payment are coming
Principles.
due.
Yeah.
So probably that's why there will be two. Because if they're taking some of the new debt, they may not come due now, but um, they may come due in the next 10. Which
Hmm.
if we have another person in who is taking over, could inherit paying us debt. Of course,
Hmm.
government is continuity, so you gotta pay. But if you look at if you go back, you want to say something on the liabilities, the foreign liabilities.
No, I think that's all. I think they did a good job on the domestic liability. I wish the decrease were actually on the foreign liability. That would have been great. I rather owe somebody close that I know that or somebody that who is outside, like So
No, I think I like the fact that the domestic debt is going down because some of the foreign debts are concessionary, those big loans, concessionary loans from World Bank and from people who finance these things from Exxon Bank or different banks. So this thing has concessionary periods and they have lower exchange rate, but I mean lower interest rate. But if you continue to owe people domestically, it doesn't do well for the economy too because you're not infusing more money into the economy. You're not
mm,
paying domestic, and so many debts will be coming from the banks, right? It could be coming
that's
from the
how that's
banks.
how they come from,
Yeah,
right?
a lot of them coming from the bank. A lot of them also coming from people that operate, businesses that the government take goods from
Hmm.
or whatever from, and so domestically, it's a good thing to pay this debt so that the people can continue to flourish and their business can continue to flow, right?
Hmm.
So, as compared to foreign loan, which is more concessionary, I think it's a good thing to pay the domestic debt, as compared to some of them may not have come due, right now. Some of them got 7 years, some of them got 3 years, concessionary period to pay.
Hmm.
So, yeah. So I like the fact that they're paying the domestic debt, but eventually they still have to pay the foreign debt. The
Right,
ones are set. Yeah.
right. So do
Mhm.
you think the foreign debt that we own is actually secured by concessions?
Well, they're secure by different things depending on where the loan is coming from and for what purpose. So they're secure by different things, right? And some of them, um, because they're concessionary, some of them just your they look at your balance sheet and look at whatever, and you're given a loan based on the purpose of the loan. But they're guaranteed by different things.
Okay. Well, okay. Did you?
No, go back. I wanted to come to compensation.
Mhm.
Go back to where the expenses.
Expenses? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll see that the compensation has increased by 3 million, right?
Hmm.
And it was 293. It's now 296 million.
Hmm.
And you know we're in this IMF program about which which
Austerity.
which
Right.
which which led us to what we call the harmonization, where the dig hole close hole that we
Right.
call harmonization. But stay against that backdrop, we stay increasing. Is it is it that they increase the employee salary, or is it that they're hiring more people? Our If you look at the overall percentage of our budget,
Hmm.
right? Our budget, the compensation of employee is hovering, plus or minus 60% of our budget. If you look at these
Hmm.
numbers now, I mean,
Yeah.
right now you're looking at it now, it looks like 40%,
Yeah.
right, or 45% of our budget. If I do a visual calculation, just looking at a 300 million as compared to 800 million, full being half. So yeah, it's around 45%, 48%.
Hmm.
So, which again, a good chunk of our budget is in uh, salaries and wages.
Hmm.
Government being the biggest employer in Liberia, the fact that we're not having a good private sector growth led government, I mean, country. So we've increased ours against the whole IMF program, against the whole harmonization situation. We've increased again. I'm not saying people should not be higher. I mean, you got to employ people. But what is leading to this increase again is something else.
Right.
Use of goods and services, this is decreased, right? Significantly.
Yeah.
Use of goods and services, the things that run the different, um, it's the thing that run the different organizations. I mean, the different institutions, government institutions, whether it's
Right.
printing, whether it's petroleum, and maybe some of these things have decreased with the new electricity situation happening. And then you also have to note that sometimes they put these things in the budget, right? But the money does not, the allotment does not actually go to the institutions. And
Hmm.
so maybe they're trying to adjust on some of those things again. But yeah, it's a good thing to cut back on maybe that's why salary has increased because now they're cutting back on goods and services.
Hmm.
So I think 3 million of that goes to salary and a salary adjustment. You know, you have some nurses, people in the medical field who were not on payroll. It's
Hmm.
possible that you also have some teachers who were not on payroll. So they're bringing these people on payroll. So if you're decreasing one aspect of the expenditure line and you're increasing another one, that's a good thing. But this is a $33 million decrease, as compared to a $3 million increase, which is a good thing, right?
Hmm.
Again, subsidy will go up. Again, that compensate for the 33% increase. So overall, it's 28%, 3% decrease. But again, item by item, it looks good, but overall, we should be increasing. If you
The
read
revenue base.
the economic outlook, it should be increasing.
Right. No, I agree with you. And to I agree with you. The fact that the economy is growing at, let's say, average 3%, right? Or I think we're at 3.7% last year. We as this If they had expanded the tax base or even other revenue, what we call profit center basis, that revenue should have been higher than it was last year. So I
Hmm.
don't know why they're not capitalizing on that level of growth that we're having, but instead um, you know they're losing money on it. Um, The only thing that I'm excited about here is, well, I don't want to call it assignment, that I hope they will do with the decrease, the cutback in the goods and services spending, and also the cutback in the domestic debt. I hope they can take that savings that they accumulated, which is $68 million for those two, right, from the goods services and domestic debt, and contribute some of that towards the foreign debt payment, because that has blown, that has went up by 56%. So that cutback, that saving that they have from the goods and services, I hope they can plow some of that, deploy some of that to the foreign liability, so that way it even things out. I hope they
But
didn't do the
you want them
cutback.
to pay the debt when you want them to pay the debt when you're not due.
But it's coming due. It went from 36 million to 56 million this year, right? So that's a
Mhm.
$20 million increase. So that's what I'm saying. They're saving 33 on the goods and services, and they're saving
Mhm.
another 35 on domestic debt. So they can take some of that saving from the domestic debt payment and deploy it into the foreign debt payment. So that way
And
it's
yeah, and
right,
who knows? That's why they're decreasing in other areas to be able to pay the loan. Now there's a 56% jump from
right.
36 million to now they have to pay additional um, some additional loan payment or
Mhm,
interest payment have come due up to the
mhm.
tune of 20 million. So they need to adjust in other areas. So if it's not realistic, then some of the institutions are going to suffer as they were suffering anyway, because some of the institutions will not get their goods and services,
Yeah.
money and stuff like that. They will just they get their salaries, okay, but the operational fund was is something that that the minister of information made a statement which went viral about the fact
Mhm.
that he was getting $17,000 as operation fund. So you wonder how other institutions also have similar situation.
Yeah.
It's just that he had the guts to speak that out as
Mhm.
compared to other institutions. So again, uh, you will notice that there will be this kind of problem with the different institutions suffering for the fact that they will not be getting resourced.
Yeah. All right. So, with that being said, I think so. What the next thing we did, you know, we didn't have enough time to do it for every major uh, area, but we broke it down, um, what I call sector by sector.
Mhm.
So this slide here, we look at key places that money was spent, right? So, um, for the NSA last year, 2022, was about 11 million. They have really cut into that this year, just to 9 million. So that is a 17% decrease. I think this is some of the places you're seeing the cuts coming from too, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the EPS, they from 10 million to eh, it went down by 500, 454,000 or 4%. And then you look at the national police, right? From their budget went up from 19 million to 20 million, and the armed forces decreased by 12%.
yeah. They want the police to arrest more arms.
That's the logic. That's what you got from it.
That's the 600 almost 700,000 increase so that they can
Yeah.
collect more arms that purportedly came from the great United States of America. I'm like, how do you export that kind of arm
Mhm.
from United States? Those are serious arms that don't just slip through the. It's not just one. It's not just one pistol or two pistol that you can stuck in a barrel
Also
or something.
assault
Like this,
rifles.
those are assault weapons.
Yeah.
You know, how do they pass through the soil of the ports of America before they get to Liberia? I don't know. But again, yeah. So sarcastically, I would say so they can do more. They can do a better job. But again, I mean, on a serious note, that election is coming.
Hmm.
The police got to work more. So maybe it necessitated them getting additional budget for to man the security, because I mean the NSA is a security agency. They do intelligence and stuff like that. The armed forces of Liberia to again hitting the armed forces budget is the armed forces of Liberia is already constrained, but
Hmm.
again the increase in the police budget is not a lot. It's 700,000 as compared to these decreases in the other areas. But again, my man, in realistic terms, sometimes you know, I don't want to say it's straight, but sometimes who take a bucket free will, like sometimes they can put the money there to take it there from the back door, so they got to decrease some of that.
I
Yeah,
lie, I lie. What I
yeah.
I didn't I wouldn't think that. I just think that maybe I don't know if you noticed there's it's like every year the police does a huge recruitment of people. You will see them training. I mean, unless you're saying that the number of people retire from the police force every year, there shouldn't be that level of recruitment. But maybe it's because of that level of recruitment that their budget went up. The army too does the same thing too. They just had a class graduate. So there's unless you were saying that that number of people that graduated from the academy retire from the police force to replace them, then I would say. But um, if anything, I think I was strengthen the military before I strengthen the police. So
Technically, you're right,
yeah,
Gabriel. They
yeah,
should know that for this year, I believe, because there's expectation of things happening with elections coming. The country is going to get
the
excited. I
rowdy,
think
right,
it's going to get excited. I'll use the word excited instead of
right.
I won't use a negative tone. But the country is going to get excited, and the police needs to quiet some of this excitement down. Um, so at this stage, I would justify even more money cutting from the
The
national security
military.
on the backdrop of not because the national security agency is not important. They do a lot of work on intelligence, but again, like I said, sometimes they put it there and they take it from the back door. So
Hmm.
some of this money that they're putting there and taking it from the back door need to come down. And so I will support the even a further decrease of the national security on that account. Not that they don't do good, they do work. I worked with them before. I mean, not as an employee, but as the head of the FIU, I worked with them before. So
Hmm.
they do a lot of work. But again, uh, um, EPS, yeah, they should even cut more. But for the armed forces and the police,
Hmm.
I don't see why they're cutting the armed forces. The armed forces, the armed forces needs more.
Yeah,
And in this year, 2023, the police needs more.
okay.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. Absolutely. And then the next one we looked at here, I think this was well, not I think this is the president's office, the vice president. I think we did a good job here about complaining about the first lady getting any allowance. So this year they didn't allocate anything for her in the
Yes.
budget. I didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And then JFK, you know, JFK actually, which is technically, if you want to say it, is probably the biggest hospital in the country,
It
governmentally,
is.
right?
It's not
So
probably. Next to it
they,
is the Jackson Hebdo Hospital in Nimba.
yeah. So yeah,
Mhm.
their budget went up by almost 900,000. Uh, um, However, the president's office saw a huge decline in about $2 million in his office, and the same thing about with the vice
What $2 million?
president.
That's 1.1 million.
1.1, right? 1.1
Mm.
million. No,
Are you running
technically
on one? You want to run on one? That's 1 million.
1 point 1 point
1.2 million.
1.2 million. You're right.
Hey,
All right.
please.
So which is a 22% decrease. The vice president, the same thing, 500, let's say 600 thousand, 14%. And I think this is good. If
No, I wouldn't say it's good for the officer. You remember when we discussed the 2022 budget, there was this huge movement of money into the Ministry of State, right? And all that was based on politics. So they are
right,
cutting back some of that money they put there anyway. And so it's just okay, we increase it. It's like You go to the department, so they're doing the, what you call
Discount.
sales.
All right.
They're doing all the discount, but what was the initial price before you do the discount? So it's like, what was the initial money that went in there before you're not taking it out? So
Mhm. No, when I
it's
say
good that
good,
they're not giving because there was a public outcry on the office of the first lady. So zero, that again they're responding to the outcry. Maybe
yeah. Now, when I say good, I mean that we know the government that we have. We expected, everybody, I guess everybody expected his budget to go up. They don't care about, any state of the economy, what's happening in the economy. But the fact that there's been a significant decline, decrease in his uh, budgetary allocation, including the vice president as well, I think that is a good thing. Now, to your point, they may have inflated that last year, um, you know, for whatever reason, but it's still a decline. It's still a decline. Decrease is still a
you
decrease.
remember there was a $10 million something that reserved for presidential
Yes,
trip and all that stuff, right?
tours.
Which was,
Yeah,
of course, it was put in the PSIP. It was put
right,
in the special project,
right.
right? Which should be more of, you know, local development things and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
But they put it there, right? Things that if you're facing the executive mansion, that's where you put PSIP, right? If you're doing certain, projects like that. But they put that money there for, presidential visit to different counties.
Hmm.
So, and then there were other money they put in the Ministry of State budget, which the president's office formed a part of.
Hmm.
So if you look at all that, that's why I'm looking at. If you look at all that increase and you're cutting it down by 22%,
Hmm.
for me it's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
But
Okay. On
again,
that
we'll come
note,
to
yeah,
Minister of State. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So,
But
hmm,
JFK should get more money. 857,000 is not enough.
I agree
The,
with you
the
too. I
medical
think,
the medical that's the medical area. It should get more money. The
yeah,
medical area should get more money.
yeah. But then again, sometimes I think they shoot themselves in the legs with the record that they have to. You know, it
Yeah,
makes.
that's
Yeah.
different topic, different day.
All right. What was that? I added a slide twice. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
go on, keep going.
No, I added a slide twice. That's it. I had another one for. Let me see. Hopefully, I can see it. Let's see if I can bring it up here. I had one more here from. Okay, so that that. Okay, maybe that was it. Let me see. Yeah, I had another slide here. Let me see if I can find it quickly. Um, so the executive NSA. Um, yeah, I had one here for. Oh, okay. Yeah, I have one here. Let me see if I can put it on here. All right. While we do that, let's bring in some comment while we do that. Um,
Yeah, I'm looking at some numbers here. Um,
yeah. Okay.
Somebody was saying uh, what has McCarthy election have to do with the topic? Yeah, that was just an icebreaker for us to
Yeah. Well, we were just
we
having an icebreaker before we launched into the show, John. It
yeah.
wasn't. It had nothing to do with the topic. But yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for
but
calling us
sometimes in
out.
this discussion, sometimes you just inject something in there to
Right.
kind of buy some time for
Right.
but
So yeah, I would like you to maybe you can bring the comments and let me try to see if I
yeah,
can. I
yeah,
have one
forget
more
the
slide
comments.
here. Right. I have one
Yeah.
more slide here that I want us to bring in here. This is for presidential affair, universities, and then we have agriculture and administration. Yeah, this is important.
I'm trying to look at the budget here. If you look at the
What part of it are you looking at?
no, I'm trying to look at the same thing you're looking at the but I don't have it in summary, so it'll be different. Yeah, compensation 2020, the projection for it's the same thing, 56 million. Yeah, okay. So I wouldn't have it on the thing, but we can discuss it like that.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
You got the public sector, public administration sector, which
Okay.
has 240, 248 million versus that's all the different ministries and the office of the legislature, the minister of state, and those the public sector, public administration sector. They
Uh-huh.
are taking the biggest chunk of the budget always from year in year out. This has been a historical thing. Next to that is the security sector, which take the 97 billion. I mean million. Ooh,
Hmm.
why am I going to billion? Then you come to the education sector, which take another 97 million.
Hmm.
Then you come to health sector, which is the fourth, which takes 75. If you run it up to 76 million. And then you come to energy, you come to infrastructure, which take infrastructure and basic social services
Hmm.
with 71 million. And also, yeah, so those are the biggest chunk of the budget. But the greatest one being
Yeah, let me see.
the greatest one being the public administration sector that continues to take a huge chunk of the money. And this is a historical pattern. It is not this administration situation is being like that from
Hmm.
time to time. And how do you cut that back is some of the things that we as a country would need to begin to look at. How do we, because sometimes, Gabriel, you have some of these institutions where they're just on budget. I mean, they're just there. What do they do? And some of these things that we could combine, to cut down. So if you look at the public sector, which is 247 million, you have number one, you have Ministry of Finance and Development Planning, which is 131, but you know that the payment of the 56, the debt payment goes to the Ministry of Finance,
Yep.
right?
Right.
So if you deduct the Ministry of the debt payment, the Ministry of Finance will still be doing around $81 million,
Hmm.
right? Which is still the highest.
Hmm.
So there are other things that you pay through the Ministry of Finance that are held on the Ministry of Finance budget. But yet and still the Ministry of Finance still remains the highest. All right. Next to that is the uh, National Legislature,
Hmm.
right, which take 43 million. After that, you come way down to the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs. You see what I was talking? They take 15 million,
Right.
right? Before them is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is 16 million. Now, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, of course, you know that they have all these different embassies and in different economic zones, and some of them are in the euro zone, some of them are in the dollar zone. So you understand why the budget would be that way, right? Then you come to the Ministry of State, which is 15. Then you come to the Liberia Revenue Authority, which is 16 million. Because if you
Hmm.
round that up,
Hmm.
15.9 million. But again, you see, these are the people that are generating the money, so they should have, they should, you should take a good chunk of the money, right?
Hmm.
So, so that's where bulk of your budget is going at 248 million, as compared to 700. What's the total budget?
778.
778. So you have almost 300 million of that going to this sector, which
Hmm.
comprises the National Legislature, the Ministry of State for Presidential Affairs, the Office of the Vice President. Of course, like I was telling you, the Office of the President is within the Ministry of State.
Hmm.
But on this budget, the Office of the Vice President is separate. You have the Civil Service Agency, which is taking 14 million. You have the General Services Agency. You have the Ministry of Information, Culture, and Tourism, which is taking 3 million. All right, no wonder why. the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Liberia Institute for Public Administration, the Liberia Institute for Statistics and Geo Information Services. Can you imagine? They are taking 1.9 million on the backdrop that they are doing census and other things. Anyway, then you have the Bureau of State Enterprises, 800,000. I don't know what these people doing here. Yeah. Then you have the Liberia Revenue Authority. You have the Board of Tax Appeal. The Board of Tax Appeal, it's a small organization, so they're taking just $173,000, small money. National Food. So that's what it is. You have the my own. Ooh, all right. Yeah, the Financial Intelligence Unit budget has doubled. What?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
it's
with what do you in overall, what do you make of the entire budget? Would you what do you make of it? You know, um,
yeah, on the overall. I think we were more excited last year when we jumped this budget to um to set. I think it was 700 and something million, 785 million.
786. Yeah.
Yeah, 85 million or whatever it was at that time. We were all excited that, oh yeah, the budget is now moving. Even though, yeah, we have our own um argument here and there about the details, but we're all excited that that was happening. But if you look, if you take a seat back and away from the excitement my read of the economic outlook as compared to last year, this year, this year budget, this year budget prints a, a glorious picture. But I thought that the numbers should go along with that.
You mean
Because when you're
this year
having,
numbers, the economic growth projection paints a glorious
yes,
picture,
yeah,
but the budget does not reflect that.
it doesn't reflect that.
Right.
So the question it continued to beg the question, what the people have in the budget for them? What is there for the people? When bulk of your budget is going to these public sector institutions, and then the other institutions that really do the work when they're not really getting the the goods and services has dropped by 33 million. So you know that the space is
Uh-huh.
tighter,
Uh-huh.
right? The operating space is getting tighter because you have decreased um, the operating fund by 33 uh, million. Technically, to compensate for other things, to compensate
Hmm.
for the 3 million salary increment and, of course, the 20 million increment in debt payment, right?
Right. Right.
But when you look at the economic outlook, it doesn't tell the story of the budget. It doesn't tell the story what is going on in the country with goods prices of goods and services. When the economy is growing, there should be employment. There should be, more money should be upstream. There should be more, um, um, private sector company coming into the country. Therefore, there should be more tax paid, and therefore your budget is supposed to grow. So the economic outlook is completely not parallel to the budget numbers and not
Yeah.
parallel to the economic situation on the ground.
Right.
And overall, that's my picture.
Yeah.
And the fact
So,
that the institution that's supposed to be doing the work, they're not resourced with their operating funds. It is
mhm.
difficult, right?
Yeah.
Again, the
That's the overall thing that I glean from it as well. I think we have, if you look at the GDP from earlier when we were reading the overview, right? The economic GDP projection is that the economy it grew to 3.9 billion. I think the year before that we were at 3.3. So it has grown significantly. However, and we expected to grow 4 to 4.2 this year, right? So
Mhm.
3.9, 4.2, that is $300 million increase that we're going to see in the growth again. However, we're not capitalizing on this growth, right? Because growth, the GDP is just the economic activity that happens in a country over the 12 months period, right?
Mhm.
So if we are expected to grow by another 300 million, how the question becomes, what are we doing to capitalize on making enough revenue from that 300 million, that activity that is going to happen within the economy in addition to the existing one? You know, we're not, I don't know if it's inefficiency from the tax base collecting tax revenues, or is just an incompetency level at various places of the economy. But we're not capitalizing on the growth that this country is the country is experiencing. You know, we have opportunities within those areas, like the revenue side, to really expand our tax base. Um, and when you look at the income that we're getting from taxes, they're not much, right? What is actual taxes? They're not much, but we have the ability to expand the tax base. And I say expand the tax base, I mean in actuality, nobody like to pay tax. I don't care. Maybe I don't care who the person is. I don't care how much money that business is making. Nobody or no business want to pay tax. But what we can do in our country is to make it easy for people to pay taxes. What do I mean by that? Let's say you have your business, right? You can go online and see this is quarterly, this is how much Alan Bernard International owe. Every 3 months, this is how
Mhm.
much you owe the government. There should be a way for you to be able to pay that tax directly on that line, online. Or maybe if you open your phone, there should be a way for you to pay that directly. You shouldn't have to go to office, go to the other office that gave you slip. You go here and there before you actually trying to figure that out. Or nobody should be able to come here and just trying to go through your businesses and trying to see how much you owe before you pay that. So if we can make those things easy for people to do, easy for people to register businesses, easy for them to pay taxes, we are making it easy for us to collect enough tax revenue. The same thing goes for the property taxes. I'm not a big fan of his for his presidential bid, but Ben Finn is one of the guys who actually proposed properties having addresses, right? If you can allocate each building in our country, each property in our country to an address, right? You're able to collect, to assess the building tax liability and be able to collect taxes from that. But we're not leveraging on that. So we have this window of opportunity again that is happening in terms of growth that we can capitalize on, but we're not doing that. Who knows when the next economic uh, downturn may happen? It could be another economic disaster. We had the uh, Ebola. We just had the pandemic 3 years ago. Who knows the other thing that may happen? Another downturn may happen within the economy. So we have this window of opportunity of growth that is happening, but we're not capitalizing on it. And for me, I think that is a tragedy on this government part, but also most importantly on the part of the everyday citizen that is within our country. So for me, that's I think that's my overall thing that I got from it. Yeah.
And Dwayne Nair is checkmating in there, and he's correct. He say cited for what? The budget that does not reach the people. Yeah, and I said it. What I was trying to say, Dwayne, you're right. You're right for checkmating me. We're excited the fact that our budget has now increased from but again, like I said too, the budget does not reach the people, and that excitement has even been sort of killed more. Even though it was killed last year, we're excited about the number, but the details of the number, the fact that most of the numbers were all geared towards politics, and it did not reach the people, and again, they did not reach even the people that provide the entities that are providing the services, so that they provide the services and for the people that benefit the people. And it's more it's it's more it's more exciting. I mean, it's more less exciting that even this year budget, the economic outlook, they print a good picture, but the numbers do not kind of represent what is going on. So I mean, so you're right. You're right that excited for what the budget that does not reach the people. You're right. I mean, I couldn't have agreed with you more.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's right. And we felt the same way too last year. I think when the budget came out last year, every one of us were, everyone was excited about the budget that is, climbing towards $1 billion budget. So we expected that to maybe happen again, to maybe see an increase again, given that we're expecting more growth from the the year before. We're expecting more growth than we had the year before. So we expected that level of growth. But I think, as always, and to be fair to this government too, I don't want to put all the blame on them too. The same thing that is happening now has always been happening before. That level of growth, it's never been where you said this budget is increasing and you see that growth being transferred to the average Liberian, and things are doing better. People are faring far off than they were. Um, but to focus on where we are, I think that's the tragedy. As I keep saying, it's a tragedy that we keep having, because we expect this level of growth that we're seeing within the economy. Imagine your budget, your GDP is about to be $4 billion. $4 billion. How much money are you making off of that? How much, like, what is driving that? That's the question you should be asking ourselves. What is driving
Mhm.
that? Where can we capitalize? Where can we deploy resources to expand our tax base? What can we do to make, to increase the revenue? I would say this last thing, and then I'll end. In as much that I think we have that opportunity, I also believe that the government is too massive. When I mean too massive, I mean there's too big. There's too many people in the government. There's too many people in the government. Granted, our government does not produce anything. I don't think a government should be this big. The government in Liberia is too massive. I think there should be. I believe in lean government, small government, and where you can deploy resources in the right places and be able to maximize, whether your tax collection or creating a business environment for more businesses to start, people to start businesses, pay taxes, and have enough revenue coming in. Then, in terms of
Mm.
what we have right now, a lot of people are just bloated within the government, and that is heavily weighted on the expenses that you see, which is, I think, it's taking about 45% of the entire budget that we make. Now imagine if we were to reduce the number of people in the government, take some of that money, deploy that resources, even on the roads, or even to the Liberian tax, I mean the revenue authority, where they have the resources now to do their job. Maybe in that aspect, we will be able to see, the revenue, grow the revenue to $1 billion, but also be able to deploy some of that in key area to be able to, that can benefit the Liberian people. Yeah,
But man, today we gotta close at a 1 hour and 30 minutes. Not
yeah, yeah, yeah.
your man Emmanuel Jackson said that he's just coming. He arrived late at the marketplace, and he said, "What is the reason GOL budget never affect poverty reduction in Liberia?" Oh, how's about that? Do you know that Dwayne Nance said that the budget doesn't reach the people. Now,
Doesn't reach the people. I think
our
that's a
man
follow
Emmanuel
up.
Jackson is saying that the budget never affect poverty reduction. Meanwhile, we have a poverty reduction strategy, which even the government itself has now doubled down on as I heard on the whole PDB, what poverty. What's that document called again? PDPDF or what?
PAPD. I think PAPD.
It, it is so much that we forget about the things.
It's in there. They put their acronym in somewhere in the government. I mean, in the document there. I
Mhm.
think probably a one liner. I think to the point I don't even think they even believe it themselves right now at this point.
Yeah. That's why I was saying that they kind of double down on some things on it. But again,
Right.
yes, Emmanuel, you're correct. The budget never affect poverty reduction in Liberia. It's always like even now you see the budget itself is oh my people um. My man, we got some problem there.
What?
You see the comment section, we got some problem there, but we'll look at it later.
Oh boy.
Oh my God,
That's
yeah.
fine. Don't worry. That's
Yeah,
fine.
so so
We'll take it off.
that's the budget. You look at the numbers; it's always going towards if majority most of the budget is going towards the public sector, public administration sector. What do you say? So it is, yes, some of it is going toward health, some of it is going towards education, but again, the budget is not made to really affect the people and take them out of poverty until we get there. Um, Mr. Nair and Mr. Jackson, you're quite correct. But again, that is something we've been dealing with all these years, from year in year out.
Yeah. All right. So we have another comment here. Um, what is this? This person always follow
No,
us.
don't read that. That's I don't no. Take that
No.
off. That MCM. That's no. Take it off. Take it off. That's
Yeah. No. No. He's saying that. I think he's saying besides his name not being there, he's saying that maybe we need a bill out. Oh, you deleted that. Okay.
no. The bailout is blocked. So
Okay.
the one we're doing is blocked. But
Yeah, I deleted the
so
other guys. Okay.
if you
So we have
bring
another comment here.
yeah okay.
Um, this is for. Hmm, this is from this guy. LIB, but two. I mean, I will go do my research one day and find out your real name, but that's another story. Um, he said to add to Emmanuel's question, do you guys care to expand on why there is little or no way for the government to invest in infrastructure? That is a key question there. Want to take a stab?
Okay, so what there's I was trying to find to add to Emmanuel's question, do you guys care to expand on why there is little or no way for the government to invest in infrastructure? Yes, what's his name? Debo, right? So first of all, generally our budget is small. If you're talking about less than 800 million budget, how much is it to do road? On average, a kilometer of road could cost you $1 million. You know, so if your budget is how many kilometers of road you can build from such a budget, all right, and you have to be able to take more loans to build. That's what other countries do, right? They take huge loan, but then you have to clean up your credit record. We stay in this situation because we did the HIPIC bailout. So we stay in this restrictive situation to take more loan. And if you don't have a private sector led government to direct some of the to increase, say for example, you want to build they say they wanted to build the corridor, the southeastern corridor, the development corridor. How do you build that? What type of business you be driving to those areas that you're building all those roads? If you go to Senegal, for example, right? Senegal decided to build a brand new airport. They decided to develop all the road because they were moving their economy. Dakar had gotten so crowded, and they tried to move the city. They first of all built these beach cities. They developed these beach cities, right? That people, most and the tourists were these tourist spots where more tourists were going into. So they now needed to drive the city, the country towards that. So they opened all the roads, build a new airport, and you can see the city is now going. There's more private sector companies that are going out there, more housing development that are going out there away from Dakar. So it will be difficult in Liberia because we don't have a situation where we are attracting more private sector. So, and we have a small budget, and we are in this constraint with our HIPAA situation, so we can't take a lot of money. Most of the loans we're taking, a lot of it is for budget support or other smaller projects. If you're taking loans of 50 million here to do food distribution, if you're taking 40 million loan here, what how many and so you can only build the community roads with that kind of money, right? If you're taking 100 million, 100 million out of loan, you can only build certain amount of roads. So your space is small, so it's difficult. So there has to be a deliberate effort to expand the space so that to improve our credit rating, so that we can be able to attract more foreign direct investment yield to extend our development goal. It's gonna be a little tough for now until we really be deliberate about that.
Yeah, I do. I think I agree with you, but sometimes it's kind of appalling that we are in the government, but we don't have a infrastructure plan. When I mean infrastructure plan, we know we're behind with the A ball when it comes to development or infrastructure. Now this goes back to whether the previous government or the one before that, since the war ended, right? I thought, I hope, I wish we could have mapped out our country in terms of from an infrastructure standpoint, to say these are the roads that this country needs to build in order to interconnect and link every county to every or every major county, right? um, but we don't have that in actuality. And in addition to that, as I said earlier, we have a bloated government that spent almost 30-40% of the revenue they collect on recurring expenses, right? None of that has to do. I think the last time I checked, we spent about 10 million or so on infrastructure, right? That's how much we allocate towards to roads development. Now imagine a country that is technically poorly managed. We're not investing in infrastructure, but at the same time, whatever little bit of money we're getting, we're spending all of that on recurring expenses. Um, to be honest, I think if we had a plan, each president that came in will kind of take a little bit of that and invest towards it. So let's say we had an infrastructure plan. We know how much money we need to make to develop that whole infrastructure plan to connect every county. Let's say you come in as a president, you will say, I may not be able to do all, but I can allocate at least 100 million towards the infrastructure plan and build this corridor of roads in this area. The next person will come in and do that. But because we have no plan, everybody just come in and does what they want to do. Now, from in terms of why is it that we don't, there's, the government doesn't invest in infrastructure. I don't understand that, because I think from, if you look at the free trade, African free trade agreement, that is the whole essence of it, right? To have intertrade within the country. Now, in our case, if we're able to develop, build infrastructure, roads and bridges and highways and whatever you want to call it, it will allow us to intertrade with each other, right? So the people that are in, let's say, Nimba, they will not go to whatever it is, Guinea, to go buy stuff, or to go sell stuff. They will just bring it straight to whatever the next market hub is to sell their stuff. You can put tolls on the roads and make money from it as well. There will be a lot of inter trade within the country, from that. In terms of why we're not doing that, again, this is an incompetent thing. I think it's just purely out of incompetence, because I think we have the ability to 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 develop our infrastructure. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take these two last comment, and then we'll take a break and close. But yes, I think Debo was following up. He said, "But are loans sustainable for infrastructure development? What sector could be used to suspend or drive new revenue flow? And how will austerity measures at least get us to a place to finance some of our own. Yeah, but austerity
That's
measure,
that's
where
a loaded question. A whole
yeah,
lot
what
of
the
question.
austerity measure, the budget space is already tight. I mean, as you can see in the 2023 budget, I mean the 2023 budget, they're already reducing um, um, operational fund by 33 million and to service loans and to do other things, so increase salary. So where the austerity measures coming from? We already have austerity measure by itself because some of the entities are not actually being resourced, even though sometimes they're actually getting small budget, as you know, admitted, you know, publicly already. Other institutions here have said it. Um, I was there at one point. The entity that I had did not get, besides salary, we did not get a dime from the government for operation funds. So what other austerity measure is there? I mean, you got to tell me, Debo. I don't know what other, and then in terms of new areas that drive revenue flow, you could tap into other areas like tourism and other things that you could tap into. But again, we've been dragging our feet on places like tourism. Now, the overall picture of the country with all these reputational damages that we're getting over about our country, that um, even the head of our country has admitted that when he goes some places, people asking the similar question over and over. And it is tough. We've created all this, and with all the different situations coming, how do you have private sector coming to your country? You know, how do you need to, how do you have private sector coming to your country? So it's going to be tough. And then we're not making a deliberate, you know, attempt to, for example, develop to let our tourism sector work, which could be one of the places that we could start drawing from, additional funds from. That it could be a new area for growth, right, for revenue flow. But we're not doing that. So we're
Yeah.
waiting for NGO or international community to give us money, and they can only give you money for feasibility study. They can only give you money to write certain documents and which they will send consultant behind it. That consultant will be paid asking money and literally take the money back. So we got to be deliberate about that. So again,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So for me, there was one part of that question that I want to look at,
Oh,
which
you're
is,
still going to that question? Okay.
yeah, the whether sustainability, whether loans are sustainable for infrastructure development. Um, I would say yes, and the reason why I would say yes, because if you look at Senegal, right now they just launched one of the fastest rail system in the country, right? That takes, from one place to another, even go past the new stadium they built. If you look at Ghana, even though they're in massive debt right now, that is heavily money that they've been borrowing to build infrastructure. Now, for Ghana case, you can say, well, then that proves my case that they are not sustainable because they're currently in debt. However, then you can also look at the Senegal case as well, right, where they build this rail system and they have trains on there that transport people, which is I think it's 30% less than the cost you will pay on a typical taxis, right? So I say yes, infrastructure loans are specifically, you can use loans to build infrastructure, given that you're able to manage that debt properly and you're able to borrow very smart. When I mean borrowing smart, I mean taking out a loan at a favorable interest rate, and also being able to put that money directly into infrastructure, earmark it for infrastructure, and when you get the money, you build the roads and make sure that you do a feasibility study that maybe over the next 5 years you will be able to recoup or pay back that money, and next, right after that, anything over that will be direct revenue injection into your budget. So I think we can, loans can be used for infrastructure, but again, we don't have credit rating, and nobody will lend to us besides budgetary support here and there. So yeah, I, I yield.
Yeah, I was going to bring another comment there from Jimmy, which is a follow up to what we're discussing here. Um,
Yeah, where is it? I think he
he
asked me.
said, "Hang on, let me bring it. Let me bring it." He said, "Road." He said, "Road infrastructure should be planned in coordination with commercial growth we are too superficial in planning and strategy. Yeah, it's true. That's
Mhm.
why, I mean, you're right, Jimmy. There are other countries that are doing, like I said, in the case of Senegal and other places, they do this thing in tandem, right? They started, for example, they started all these different tourism hubs. There's different cities, about 3, 4 different cities away from about 2 hours drive from Dakar.
Mhm.
And then they deliberately built a new airport around that zone.
Mhm.
And then they started developing the roads
Yep.
around that zone. So the economic development thing is going towards that side. You see
Yep.
new houses, new factories coming along the road
Yep. Yep.
there. And they have this policy where um, I think there's a 30-mile policy from the main road.
Mhm.
If it's not business, it can be built. Same way they're doing in Nima County in our country, right? Yeah, I think it's 30 mile before you build everything that within 30 mile from the road has to be. If I'm not, I stand to be corrected on the 30 mile situation, but along the road has to be for business, not
Mhm.
commercial. It depends. So yeah, so Jimmy, you're right. I mean, you're right. Um, you can't just go Bay Road and leave it at that. It has to go in tandem with expected growth of business and other stuff. So,
Mhm. Okay.
mommy, I
Uh,
got I got a clip to play here for before we take the break.
go right
So,
ahead. Yeah.
oh, okay. Are we taking a break now? But there's another comment from Jimmy said incompetence and corruption. Yeah, incompetent because corruption happens, almost everywhere. But if you are incompetent, then you double the trouble, right? Incompetence and corruption. You don't have a deliberate plan to. Yeah. So then he also goes on to saying that, for example, he said the Morovia risk highway to Bombing Junction is deployable, no maintenance since the Doe administration. So you see, since the Doe administration built that highway, so it's a problem. Then he comes back to say we need to see those loan payments. These there should be an annual report and debt servicing. Okay, that's good. A good
They do.
suggestion
They
to the
do have a.
government. They do
They
have
do
something
have.
in the budget.
Yeah. They do put something out. I think quarterly. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
do. They have a report. There is a report. So it's out on the. If you look in the budget, there's something like that there. So you go on the Ministry of Finance website, you go to document, you see it, or you go to the central bank website, you see something like that. So,
Yeah.
all right,
So you want us to play something?
let's take a break, play something, and come back and close this thing. All right,
Okay.
we gotta we gotta we gotta make some money, my friend.
Okay. Go ahead.
Where are the things at? I don't know where I put the thing here.
All right, guys. We're going for a quick break. When we come back, then we'll be wrapping up for the rest of the show. Just stick with us, and we should be wrapping up in a few moments here. But we just had
Okay.
a commercial break here.
Allen Bernard International, or ABR, is a management consulting firm with a team of consultants and associates who focus on growing and transforming home healthcare agencies, nonprofits, and small businesses in other industries as well as individuals. Our services include ABR Business Support Services, ABR Accounting and Tax Services, and ABR Anti-Money Laundering Compliance Services. At ABR, we bring to each assignment dedication and commitment, experience and skills, performance-based process, integrated solution teams, and client relations. For more inquiries on our services, call phone number 469-378-3955. That's Allen Bernard International, or ABR, transforming business through ideas.
Okay, Chief, we gotta close
That
this
was
thing
nice.
now.
That was. You want to say something about the ad?
Yeah, that's Allen Bernard International, showcasing his products. And then we just want to add on that those are the services we offer, and we also add that we can prepare and file your individual and business tax returns. This tax season is coming. You can call us. Our number is there 469 378 3955. You can call us. We also have an offer for special offer if you refer any individual for any thing or any business for us to do their accounting work and also to prepare their tax return, or any individual in any state will give you 10% of what they pay us for the first year. So that's a deal. You send somebody to us, that the person just mention your name, we'll contact you, we'll give you 10% of whatever they pay us. They pay us $10, we give you they pay us $100, we give you $10. They pay us $1,000, we give you $100. They pay us more than that, we give you more than that.
Perfect. That's great. I don't think actually we have one last comment here. Maybe we can take it and then we wrap up. Yeah, well, 9 minutes over already. Um, so this is Debo. He said waste on consumable product and some asset, new card, without transparency and accountability at an increased level, which has added to the bloat in the budget, could be looked at, right? And he said overall, the budget has more on the compensation and consumption side than it has on infrastructure and government services that could drive a stronger revenue stream. Uh, I think talked about we've already talked about that, right? Um, well, I do agree with you. I think that's all the song we've been singing here. If something we I don't think we talked about here is some of those costs. Like you're paying somebody a salary and then you allocating a vehicle to them again. Um, I think it's a waste. You're giving them gas slip in addition to the salary you're paying them. I think it's a waste. The only person that should be allocated those things are, the president, the vice president, and everybody else below that should be able to buy their own cars from the compensation that they get in. Oh, yeah. So uh, we're just too wasteful of a country, and that's what happens when you don't work for something. You don't work for the money, the tax dollar that is coming in. People don't really understand how hard people work to pay tax dollars. So that's why those people are just too wasteful with it. But if you work hard to earn a dollar, before you spend a 10 cent off of that dollar, you'll be very careful. But that's the tragedy that we have right now. Yeah, so I agree with you. Anything else to say before we wrap up, sir?
Yeah, I don't. We already spent the time. I don't want to. I don't.
Yeah.
Again, I would have said that. I will add that just to close my closing part
Hmm.
comment is that based on what you're saying, yeah, that those things have to be deliberate. For example, you talk about cars. I mean, even at that, if you want to give cars, you have to streamline the price of the car. You can't have somebody buying $70,000 car and another person, buying $30,000 car because their budget is smaller. It has to be streamlined, and government needs to adopt a plan where that even if you're buying these cars, you buy at nothing should be say more than $30,000, and people should be able to pay for it. They should be able to pay for it through their salary deduction, or if they don't stay in a job before they stay in a job for only 6 months, then they don't pay. They confiscate that car you repo,
Yeah.
then you pass it on to that. There has to be a process,
Yeah.
but again, it has to be a deliberate thing. But again, that's enough for the day.
Yeah. So, again, thank you for sticking with us. For those of you that stay with us through the show, hopefully we were able to answer your question or the way you wanted it to be answered. As as we cover the budget, hopefully, I won't be here next week, but hopefully, we can probably find time to go into the debt portion of the budget. Um, and be able to cover that aspect of it. There's so much to the budget. I hope you can take time out, go on the website, take a look at it yourself. Besides what we just give you, this is just an overview. Take time out, go on the website, and really look at it and dig into it and geek it out. There's so much you'll be able to find out, or you'll be able to make sense of some of these things that we're talking about here. So, but without further ado, thank you for sticking with us. We'll see you next Saturday, and enjoy the the rest of your the rest of your the weekend. Um,
Thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for everybody who will listen afterwards. We'll see you same time, same place next Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Liberian time. We'll see you again, whether Gabriel here or Gabriel here.
mhm,
We that will be here will count the show.
exactly. There you go. All right. As we always said, regardless of what we say, whether you agree with or disagree with us, there's one thing that is true is that we're all Liberians, and just always remember that you can disagree with somebody without, um, arguing, without disliking that person. And regardless of the day, we're all Liberians. And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next Saturday. Adios.
Ciao. Mhm.
We are Labira. Labira is our